Okay, cool. Thank you so much for doing this. Oh my God. Like, I've been catching up on your podcast, girl. You guys have been doing your thing.
Fun. It's super fun doing it. It has been a complete just outlet. And me, I like to talk. I've been talking since I always got in trouble for talking too much in school. And then it gets me in trouble in the military too, because I'm like over opinionated about stuff and be quick to call something stupid and ended up in trouble. So, yep.
No, I think that's an amazing thing, especially in the military. So just to be clear, you're a soldier in what branch of the military?
The Army National.
I'm sitting here with the fabulous Tonnisha B. She's got big things cracking on her end. She's got a book coming out with her co-host of her fabulous new podcast called Combat Divas. So thank you so much for joining me and blessing my audience with your perspective today. And how are things with you?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So yeah, first of all, I just want to start off with your service. Thank you for your service. And you've been doing that for how many years now?
Whew, okay. So I joined while we were still in school. I joined December of 2002. So this December would be my 18th year.
Wow.
Yep, I can't even believe it myself. I'm like, really one thing for like the last 18 years almost. So
First of all, let me say that's memorable. Yeah, I can't imagine the type of life-changing experiences that you've like gone through as far as doing that. What made you sign up? Because I ain't gonna lie, I signed up for the National Guard and chickened out. I think we signed up together. I'm not George W. Bush got elected. I'm like, oh no, I'm just in it for the free college. I don't really want to go to combat.
That was me. I didn't want to go to combat either, but it was just me and my brother, raised by a single mom, and it was just working off her wages. So she was like, you want to go to school? Find the money. And I didn't think of getting like student loans. I didn't want to go the student loan route because I've been told like you be in that freaking relationship with Sally Mae for like the next 20 some odd, whatever, however many years if you don't get a good career after finishing all of that. So I found the money. They had the little booth and all I saw was 100% tuition paid. So I was like, sure, I want to get more information. At first, I initially signed, was going to just put my name on a list for the free pencil because they had like this little cool little camouflage pencil that I wanted. And I'm like, I went to get a pencil and next thing I know, I got a recruiter at my door. So after going through basic training and maybe it was like September, October of 2003, and I was ready to hit the ground running, like, all right, what I need to do for school. And he basically was like, all right, just wait, hold off on that. And next thing I know, I received orders to go to Iraq. Like within a few weeks of coming back from basic, it was like, hey,
so you guys shipped off to Iraq 3 weeks after completing basic training?
Like 2 weeks.
2 weeks after completing basic training.
Mm-hmm. So I went in as a transporter, a truck driver. And all they did was switch me over to another truck driving unit. And there I was.
How did you feel in that moment when you said, oh, I just signed up to get the free college, and then next thing you know, you're out in this world with a rifle in your hand and driving this big heavy truck, artillery?
My first feelings of when I received my orders was, oh shit, I'm gonna fucking die. I'm like, I've seen, you see all the movies and all the war movies and people getting signed up and called up to go to war. And I was like, I went through training and I don't know nothing about this. I'm gonna die. That's the only thing I could think of was that I was gonna die.
So you were just a kid out there fighting for your country.
Yep. And people were like, well, the only way, you'll be free from going is if you get pregnant. So I was like, either get pregnant or go to war. Well, you see what I see. I went to war. It was like, nah, you know what? I think I can survive this. And I was like, I think I can do this. You know, because what if you go, like, what if you don't go? You get pregnant. It's like, now how am I gonna take care of a fucking kid? I'm 18 years old with just a high school education, no job. Like, what am I gonna do with a kid? My high school sweetheart would have been my kid's father. He would have had to take care of both of us. But I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go. I don't know what gumption I had or I had to muster up to get the courage to go. I just went.
Well, I will say, regardless of the circumstances of you making the choice to actually enlist and enroll and actually getting shipped over, your service is greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of my questions were definitely going to be, were you ever afraid over there fighting in Iraq?
I have been through 2 deployments. So I initially went trained to go overseas. I was boots on ground 2004 to 2005. 3 years after that, then I had a child. And then my second deployment, which was in 2010 to 2011. So that's when I was overseas with, and my son was left back at home with, and my mom was taking care of him. Scared every single day. Every day. I still did my job. I still transported items that we had to transport throughout Baghdad, Iraq, and then pulling security on our base. A lot of near-death experiences.
Did you want to share one, or one of the ones that stand out to you when it comes to the dangers of the transport that you did?
Oh, of course. Well, while I was on the road, I was lucky enough to not experience an IED. So that was the improvised explosive devices on the side of the road. It wasn't until we finally made it to our destination that we found out how many of those we had passed by, but just didn't go off because, they overseas, they rig them up with like all types of wires and like homemade bombs and stuff or whatever. But it was rough. We spent about 3 weeks in Kuwait, not a very violent area. And then we took our trip up to our base, literally our first day, because we got there at night. And then like that next day was starting our full day on our base in Iraq. We lost our first person.
Wow.
And that was a good friend of mine. He was from Chicago too. I still keep in touch with his daughter, but he was an older cat. Like he had already deployed into Desert Storm, and he was like about 40, 41 years old. So I looked up to him like, like a father figure. And he was like, "Nah, I got you. I've been through this before, baby girl. I got you. I got you. I got you." And I was like, okay, cool. So that gave me, a sense of security. Mm-hmm. And we make it up there. And this was on like St. Patrick's Day in 2004. And just finished eating lunch. We walk out of our dining facility, walking around on base, just shooting the shit, and boom, like mortars, like these bombs lobbed over the wall, just start falling out of the sky. And that was it. And he was gone. And I was like, then that's when, like, at first I was finding some type of comfort with a shitty situation of just being overseas anyway. But then after that, I was like, fuck, if he dies, and he's been through this before, he's older, he's already, done this, I don't stand a chance. Me, I'm like, I'm gonna die. He was my protector. I'm gonna fucking die. It was just in my head. I was like, it was bad.
Okay.
Wow. He was standing right next to me. and it got him and didn't me. It missed me.
So you literally like started off your first tour missing death by a couple of feet.
Not even a couple of feet, like try a few inches. I was literally standing like half an arm's length away from him. And all I remember, I was frozen. Like I can hear the stuff hitting the ground. And I was like, I'm from the projects, I'm from the hood. I was like, gunshots, I know gunshots, but explosions and shit falling from the sky. And I'm just I'm frozen and just like, what's happening? And I can hear him say, get down. He was like, get down. And I got down. And not to mention my brother was deployed with me.
Your brother was deployed with you?
My brother was deployed with me. Matter of fact, we were there together during this event. And I seen my brother run and dive into like the underground bunker. So I'm like, that's my big brother. I'm like, he running. I'm like, I had got down and I saw him running and the thing's still hitting the ground and I'm running. I don't know why. All I did was keep my eyes on him and run. And then I fell in the underground bunker right next to him. And I just know that when I started running, I know I didn't see my friend behind me. And then they called in the medical, they call it a medevac. So the medical evacuation, they came in and they picked him up because he was unresponsive. And then later on that day, they put us in a formation. And I learned quickly that when they put us in a formation where we're not separated by groups, they just kind of put us all together in like 4 long lines in formation. It's never really a good thing. So they put us in a mass formation and they gave us the news and I was just devastated. So I was like, man, I got the rest of the year now. I'm like, we're going to be here for a whole fucking year from today.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was, wow, like just a really powerful way to start off the pod. And just
it took me a while to even say that without like to even talk about that story. Like I did like years of therapy, be able to talk about that without like turning into a big old ball of like ugly tears.
Yeah. And it's just a testament to the strength that you built up from your experiences and not just the service in life, but like just thank you for your strength, for your show of strength, because what you just did just now is just a show of proof that your trauma and your trauma can be dealt with, and you can come out of the other end of trauma okay. And just say, you know what, one day I will be able to speak on this. One day I will be able to fully process what this event was to me. Do you feel like you finally reached a point where you're able to compartmentalize everything and deal with it?
Therapy has been a tremendous help to analyze a lot of things that we've been through while deployed. How to deal with it while you're at home. We still have those triggers to where like certain noises, it's like, you know where you are, but it's like muscle memory. It's like something else triggers inside of you. Like if somebody was to drop something really heavy behind me, I'm going to shriek. I'm going to be like, what the fuck was that? Like my mind, sometimes it'll do like a flip to something dangerous, and then it flip back to like, hey, you're at home. So sometimes sometimes I'll have to have that, moment with myself to be like, okay, no, you're at home. Like, it's okay, you're safe, you're not in danger. So I have to have those pep talks, depends on what type of day I'm having. If I didn't have enough sleep and I'm just on edge and then something like that happens, it takes a little bit longer to calm down. But therapy has helped me not blame myself for certain things that happened to me while deployed. You deal with sexual assault and stuff like that in the military. A lot of things get covered up, things that, don't get told, people don't report. So therapy has helped me with things, you know, in that area.
Thank you for like being so candid about that experience. Like, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine. When you came back home, you had all these issues with police shootings and just us fighting for civil rights in general. How did that make you feel as a soldier coming home after you were just fighting for this country?
It makes you feel helpless. It makes you feel helpless because when riots and things break out in the streets, you know, not first thing, but what they'll end up doing is typically calling the National Guard. Thankfully, just because it's always involving, you know, people of color, thankfully, I have never been called up to come to the aid of, you know, police during any type of riots or protesting situations. But I do feel a lot of hopelessness, because as a person of color, being in uniform, they only show you, you know, respect while in uniform. You know, like, oh, you're a soldier, they feel like you're one of them. Like, okay, you're a soldier, you fight for our country. Some people, you know, they respect the military. But sometimes it's like, no matter that you fought for your country, you know, you're just a little black girl. Being in like, you could be in uniform and fight for your country, but you still being mistreated. And I'm like, I'm putting my life on the line. I put on the uniform and ready to deploy at the say-so of my commander-in-chief, but we still don't get enough respect in this country. And you have people to say, hey, if you don't like it, you can leave this country and you can go to Africa, you can go wherever. But it's like, I earned my stay to be here. I'm like, I did something that most of the ones that hate upon us won't do. They won't put on a uniform. They won't fight for their country for anything, be it to be a patriot or to get a better education. They won't do neither. So it's hard. It's hard, especially when you experience racism within your own ranks too. So it's a lot to be a soldier in America, a black soldier in America. It's a lot.
It's hard to get respect even when you're in uniform. The episode about Vanessa Guillen, you guys spoke a lot on how you're mistreated by your own peers in your uniform, where there's no TNA showing, where you are here dressed and in the arena, the same arena for the same purposes, but they still find a way to objectify you and make you feel like less than human. Did you kind of want to speak on that experience too?
Well, we really don't know. Like, we just can't try to understand what's going on, you know, in Texas. It's a lot of stuff that's been coming up out of Fort Hood. I personally feel like they have a crime syndicate going on down there, because it's just way too many people coming up missing, and later on being found, you know, finding their remains. And what we've been noticing has been a trend, because it's been our, you know, people of color, our brown people, and no one's looking for them. You know, I'm like, we've been taught to, you know, lean on our battle buddies, especially when we're being deployed to fight the enemy. We supposed to be able to trust, you know, that we on the same side and we have one enemy and that's ahead of us, not alongside of us. And I felt like with Vanessa, she wasn't protected.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Excuse me. Just to maintain the integrity of, you know, for those listening, Vanessa Guillen was a soldier that went missing, and then they originally reported her present for the first day that she was missing, and then they reported her AWOL for the next following days, and then her family had to basically cry out for help and to the media to shed light on the fact that these people were not looking for this young lady. Even though her car keys were left behind, her car was left behind, and there was just a lot of unusual behavior. they still just did not look for her. They just said that she was AWOL. And you guys said on your podcast that that's not the procedure, that you're supposed to look for someone who's AWOL.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We will find you. We won't stop. They don't stop looking for you. Just even if you're in the National Guard, you don't even have to be full-time service. They will literally, either they're coming to your door or they're sending the police, or both. So you will be fine. There is no, they marked her present and she wasn't there. So they also should look at the person like a squad leader or her platoon sergeant. Those are the people that's supposed to be accountable for your whereabouts. And for whomever said that she was present, they should have looked at that person as a person of interest, because you weren't doing your job. The whole point of your job is accountability. And then to simply just mark them AWOL, and then later on, months later, there was like foul play. I'm like, well, duh, you would have noticed it was foul play when you noticed that there was no clothes missing from her dorm. Her military ID is still present. Her dorm keys.
Her ID was still there?
Her ID, where her workstation was. Like, everything was still there. Her car was there. It was still at the same building that she drove from her dorm room to that building that someone called her to come into work on her day off. So these are the things they don't know where the call came from or who made the call to her phone. Everything, her personal effects, phone, keys, ID card, dorm room, everything was still in the same spot. So typically a soldier go AWOL, they're going to leave everything. No wallet, no money, no this, no that.
That makes no sense.
You disappeared her, and you're just saying that she's AWOL, but her car is still sitting there. They failed her. Her squad leader failed her. Her platoon sergeant failed her. Her company commander failed her. Everybody failed this soldier, and they didn't bother to look for her until her mother made a huge big deal about it. And she had to. Had she not, nobody would even know. No one would even look for her. Not even sure if they would have ever found her remains. And what's crazy is that they found someone else's remains that was also missing while looking for her.
Incredible.
And I'm like, what's going on? How are we?
Wow.
The enemy is amongst us.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's disheartening, and it's like a lot. I'm like, I can't even say how the Army has been long before I came along. I used to hear that it was just no place for females. My mom, she said they used to tell her that, like, the military is no place for a woman. And I can understand why she would feel that way. How, we're not typically protected. We become the object of some soldier's affection, and if they're turned down or just dismissed, they try to do bodily harm, and that's not okay.
Yeah, that's actually something that's been a hot topic, just in general and in society nowadays, of how we're just looking for Black men in society amongst themselves to call out really crappy behavior amongst their brothers or amongst their peers, to say it's not okay to let your ego be your guide. Explain how you navigated as a woman through something that we learn as women, even growing up, of how to deal with guys and how to shoot them down without making it the worst case scenario. How did you and your sisters in combat, what was the best solution that you guys came up for when it came to just kind of keeping yourself protected from the sexual harassment aspect of it and staying alive from it?
The thing is, it's kind of crazy how we speak to each other amongst our ranks. Like, a lot of the stuff is inappropriate on both sides. Some of it, like, people can say like sexual jokes or whatever, and depending on the person, depending on your friendship with the person, it could be it could be laughed off. And then another aspect, for a person that you're not so close with, not so cool with, it comes off as like disgusting and creepy. They do give us classes on how to recognize sexual harassment and how to report it. They have rules to where, like, hey, I can still report you even if you're talking to someone else and I can hear you saying inappropriate things. So it's it's odd how we speak to it's just really odd how we speak to each other. But it all depends on our rapport with that particular soldier. So a lot of the stuff should just be not said anyway. Like, we shouldn't be making the jokes that we make, but some of it is it's like a guilty pleasure. Some of it is funny, and some people could probably deem what's funny as inappropriate. It's an awkward type of bond.
You know what? I'll definitely acknowledge what you said in the beginning. Hey, it comes from both sides sometimes.
It does.
And as women, we kind of like bask in the, I don't want to say privilege, to kind of, step over certain lines, or
it's privilege.
It is privilege. So we will indulge in that privilege and say, hey, you know what, get out of here with your little ping or something, and just like, just pass it off as a joke or something like that. But when it comes from the guy that you don't want it to come from, then it's like, hold on, I never went there with you, never have, never will. So I'm going to need you to back off and back down. So that's where it kind of gets a little bit gray and it gets a little bit murky, where you said, oh, I can report sexual harassment just hearing it being spoken by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does get a little bit scary there. But
somebody could be like, soldiers could be like, man, I had her bent over and blah, 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 and something really nasty and salacious. And we can be like, we can step in and we can say, hey, excuse me, I can hear you, and blah, blah, blah. And if they'd be like, man, fuck you, and yada, 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 I'd be like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to report you.
Oh, wow.
I was offended by what you
offended by that. Thank you.
But we do get like, it's like in a way we get away with certain things, but in the other aspect, it's tricky in the military because not everything gets reported. Not everybody gets punished in the way that they should. A lot of things get swept up under the rug.
So even when you have rank, because you're a sergeant, right?
Yeah, staff sergeant.
Staff sergeant. Okay. So even as a staff sergeant, like, do you still find that you have to like navigate your way through the sexual harassment minefield when it comes to people below you or above you or even on your level?
No, me, I got a lot of mouth. Cause people to pay attention to what's going on. Like, who the fuck you think you talking to? You can't talk to me like that. And because my first deployment, it was predominantly white. So it was literally maybe 5 Black people in the whole company. And sometimes it was me and this other female. Me and her were like the same complexion, but she was, some years, maybe like 10 years or so older than me, maybe more. And they would mistake us for each other. And a lot of times I spend most of the deployment saying, when they'll call me her name, I'm like, no, I'm the other one. So that's
the
how I
other one.
I'm the other one. It's just the fact that we were both Black, and I'm like, I'm the other one. Bullying, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whatever. Yeah, or like I had this one situation with this sergeant, and I was a PFC, so it's like an E3. So it's basically you don't really make hardly anything, you're just a private. And we were in Kuwait, and I was helping clean up our tent area or whatever. They call it police call. You just picking up trash or whatever. And this sergeant, I was collecting trash. He had the trash bag, and I put some trash in the trash bag. And he balls up the bag and just drops it straight in front of me. What do you want me to do with that? He was like, take it the fuck out. I was like, I looked at him and I was like, oh. And I walked away from him and sat back down on my cot and finished watching my DVD player. And another white female specialist, which is just one rank above me, and she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm minding my business. And she was like, your sergeant just gave you an order. And I was like, he's not my sergeant. You can take out the trash. Bye. Like, you're not gonna just talk to me like that. It's just all about what you say to me. I'm like, I know it's our rank, but I deserve respect just like you deserve respect.
But it sounds scary because in that environment, like rank, respect is everything. Like just knowing your place, like that's what it feels like the military basically entails. Just know your place. So for you to say, but for you to say, hey, I'm still a human being and I still deserve to be treated as such. For you to take that stand in that moment, what did the aftermath look like after that moment?
He didn't do anything to me. He left me alone.
He knew.
He left me alone. And I felt like in that type of environment where we're all free to walk around with our weapons every single day.
Oh, wow.
With rounds.
Locked
we had
and loaded?
like, so I'm like, I'm not sure if I don't think we had that in Kuwait, but when we got up to Iraq, the whole entire year we were there, we had 2 full magazines of bullets in a weapon, no matter what, every single day. You took it everywhere. You took it to eat. You took it to the bathroom. You took it to go for a walk. You took it to the tent to where you watch TV. You took it everywhere. So I think people's behaviors were a little bit different when you can lose your shit, literally lock and load and kill somebody.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I think we just solved all the issues to crime in America. Like, just no, I'm joking.
Yeah, no, some people don't need that shit.
No, everybody does not.
I'll be like, whoa. Oh, so you mad? I stepped on your shoe. My bad. Sorry. I do have my fire owner's ID. I do have that. I do have a couple of guns.
Okay.
Someone doesn't know. I got a couple of 9mm or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I have a membership. I have a membership at a gun range.
So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Please be ready on November 3rd, because I would hate for you to have gone through all of that over there and then come back here to some BS. And
I had my mom come out here to stay with me because she lives in the city. So she's still registered to vote in the city. So I might encourage her to take her next week to do some early voting.
Okay.
Because I do not want to be nowhere in the city limits on November 3rd. My commander.
Your commander in chief. I'm sorry.
And I'm not allowed to say no bad words. You can't say no bad words about that, man.
No bad words.
But
no bad words.
But if he remains, if they select him, because I don't think he's never been elected, but if he's selected to be to hold that office again, no, I don't want to be in the city.
I was never into weapons, even though I grew up in Inglewood. That's another thing that I wanted to talk about. So you grew up in the projects, right?
Yep.
Which project? Ida B. Wells. Okay, so as a homebred Ida B. Wells girl, you decided to say, hey, this isn't enough pain and trauma for my everyday life. Like, let me go overseas. But I do understand what you were saying as far as the process of, hey, you know what? I do need to pay for school.
It was crazy, but honestly, even growing up in the Ida B. Wells, my mom was pretty strict, and thankfully, I thank her for it, in my adult life, thankfully that I was sheltered, because I used to get picked on a lot. Oh, you don't get a chance to get outside. Your mama won't let you go here. Your mama won't let you go there. And
yeah,
I got older and I was grateful. My mom kept a firm hand on me because it was just her. My mom kept a firm hand on me because it was just her. My mom not having me exposed to the environment, because it was a lot of things that happened in my neighborhood that I didn't have to witness. Heard about it later, but until, now people getting killed alongside of you, that was some shit I experienced in the military. But Not at home. Gunshots, yeah, I seen drive-bys. I seen, people with guns and stuff like that, but nothing prepared me for going to war. I think going to war and coming back home um allowed me to deal with stuff at home better, I think.
So you came from Chicago in the projects. Mom kind of kept you protected from all of the bad stuff. But then you go you go out of the frying pan into the fire. Yeah, like wow. So you come from over there, you've been through the ringer, you've done it all, you've seen it all.
Mm-hmm.
Now you come back home.
So the experiences that you've been through and that you want to talk about, people at home, it's like they don't understand you. It's like now they look the same, to me, but I look different to them. Mm. Like my behavior is different. I'm not the Tonnisha they knew prior to me going overseas and coming back home. I'm not that girl anymore. So I kind of became more closer with the ones I went to war with because I can relate to them. So when I came back home, I was bombarded with questions like, oh my God, how many people did you kill? And it's like, oh my God.
I would never.
Like, who asks people that? That's like asking a firefighter, like, oh my God, so how many burnt bodies have you seen? Like, it's just wild. It's a wild question to ask anybody. How many kills? This is not a game. This is not Call of Duty. This is not your war movie. This is not Black Hawk Down. This is not... It changed how people relate to me when I got back home. It changed how I relate to them. Like my mom, she was like, it was like I was there with you and I understand. I was like, you don't understand anything. You just know from your perspective of I'm scared for their lives because my babies are overseas, but you don't know what it was like for us being there. So just even talking to your loved ones about it is hard. It took me years to even talk about a lot of the stuff. I'm like, my mom didn't know until about a year and a half ago the trauma that I went through about 15 years ago. And she was like, I never knew that. And I was like, I never talked about it.
And you carried that alone, or you carried that with your combat buddies?
Some of them didn't even know. And it wasn't until I had kind of like a small little episode, like a breakdown or whatever at work, and I left work and I went straight to the VA and like talked to like a mental health person and feeling like suicidal ideations and that was my first time talking, like full on talking about the trauma that I experienced when I was there, that one event. And I never got into like full on details, but it was the first time I really spoke full on about those details. And it was rough. Been going through counseling because it wasn't up until like a year ago that I stopped blaming myself for what happened to me. Yes. And this was 15 years ago. And I just stopped blaming myself for what happened to me, thinking like, had I not, said this, or had I not been here, had I not drank this, and had I not whatever, it was my fault. I felt like it was my fault. I was like me trying to wrap my brain around why it happened. And since I couldn't understand why it happened, I twisted around to say it was my fault.
Yeah. As anytime you're a victim of any type of trauma, you want to feel like there was some way to control or prevent this from happening to you. Mm-hmm. When at the end of the day, it's just not. And it's very unfair to blame yourself for somebody else's crappy decisions and actions. So you carrying that trauma and those things happening to you over there, are those some of the things that you might speak in detail on in your book?
Yes, I think I've spoken on the sexual trauma. So I talked about it the best way I could explain it for my own, for my own comfort level. Yeah. And then I realized, like, after a lot of, self-reflection, that what happened to me and how that situation affected certain relationships. in my relationship to sex. When I came back from my first deployment, being my high school boyfriend, and I came back and I was masking. I was wearing a mask. I was masking my trauma and trying to feel in control by being excessively active sexually. And I was like, at first I was like, man, what was my problem? Like, man, I was like I thought I was just being like, oh, like a little horn dog. And I just wanted to just do it all the time. But then you sit with it and you reflect all the way back. I reflect all the way back to those years. And I was like, oh my God, I was traumatized. Like I needed to feel like I was in control. And that was me controlling. I'm like, I think I apologized to him years later. Like, I'm so sorry if you felt like I was using you as like a piece of meat. He like, I mean, hell, I didn't mind, but it was like
they rarely do.
Like, I mean, I didn't mind. It was like he was like clutching, like, you know, clutching himself,
clutching
like,
his pearls.
Like, oh my, like, did she just use me? I feel so used. And I didn't know that was part of my trauma.
Yeah.
Trying to feel in control of something because I felt in some moment where I was out of control and I couldn't do anything.
Did the book help you heal?
It did. It helped get some stuff out. It helped me remember a lot of shit that I suppressed. I'm like, a lot of stuff I was like, man, I forgot all about this and I forgot all about that. And I forget. When my friend, she came to me about the podcast, I was like, yes, this is it. Me, I get a chance to say whatever I want, talk about whatever I want, and be as obnoxious, be as funny, be as just be myself. And I was like, I finally get a chance to use the degree that almost took my life.
And you got your degree in communications?
I got my degree in communications. I got my bachelor's degree. I was like, I can't just not finish. I'm like, this is the whole reason why I almost died several fucking times. I can't just not get an education. Otherwise, what was it all for if I don't? I'm like, my deployment slowed up the process of how long it took me to finish.
You spent 11 years trying to get a 4-year degree, but it kept getting halted because of your deployment. How long?
Because I felt like I was a professional student after a while. I started in 2005. Yeah, so I missed about 2 years. So if you combine it, it took me 6 years to get a 4-year degree.
Oh, that's not bad.
And when I like, because I break it down and space it out, I was like, okay, it took about 6 years. And when I was pregnant, I think I felt like a whole semester because I kept falling asleep and I would leave in the middle of the class to get food. So, yeah.
Oh, but you know what? That's just a show of your resiliency. I mean, number one, your first day out, you experience what you experience with, you know, and just witnessing that traumatic event basically day one. And then you just constantly built up a resiliency. Now, granted, there were points along the way where you had to suppress certain things and deal with certain traumas in a way that I feel like people like us on the other side really could never truly understand. Personally, I do have things in my life where I can completely relate to the way that you have dealt with your trauma. And I admire you for saying I can just be belligerent and I can just speak whatever is on my mind. Because even though I am recording my own podcast, I do not feel like I'm there yet. But hopefully I'll get there one day. And I'm working on it. So
I got a question for you.
Uh-oh. What's that? Okay.
So what made you start your podcast?
What made me start my podcast was basically, so for the last few years, I've been feeling like I've had so many different experiences in my life. At one point, I spoke on being a jack of all trades, master of none. I've been through different things with family, with death, with grief, with trauma, not just with like death in my families, but with my son. I went through a lot of traumatic things. My son went through a lot of trauma early in his life. And I've recently undergone a personal trauma in my life that I'm probably not able to speak on at the moment. But I am going through my healing process from that. And over the last few years, I just really felt strongly that I really want to write a book about the different things that I've been through in my life, but I don't feel like I have that, that experience, that to say, yes, I have a voice that I can like use to put on paper, because I originally wanted to write a book. Mm-hmm. And then I said, you know what? I feel like I still need to live a little bit more life. There's a lot of things that happened in 2020 on the wide scale and personal level. And once these things happened and I began to like understand certain things about myself and about life in general, I felt like the light bulb went out and said, bam, here's that moment, that aha moment that I was looking for, to say, now I feel a lot of things in life kind of culminating and coming together, where I feel like I have a perspective that I formed that I want to share with people. And I want to like learn more from other people to help me constantly grow on my journey.
Trust and believe, when you really, dive into this podcast world, that's going to be part of that's a part of your healing. Yeah. This will be a part of your healing. You will find yourself opening yourself up more, and don't feel like, oh, I haven't lived enough life. You've lived plenty to have something to say, and somebody can relate to just about anything that you have been through.
Yeah.
And you may think something that you've been through was minimal, and it could be game changing for somebody else. You could be like, oh, like that thing that sometimes some stuff I'd be like, it'd be dismissive. I'm like, that little thing, and it could be huge to somebody else. I remember when we were in high school and you had lost your mom, that was huge. Because I remember you was talking to me about it, and I felt terrible, because I was like, no, everything's going to be okay. And it wasn't. And I felt horrible.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't know. And I was like, I'm just being so optimistic. I'm not so optimistic anymore. I'm more.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine.
Not optimistic anymore. I'm probably like, if anything, more pessimist or realist?
Yeah. When you see what you've seen, you have to be. But I also remember being in that headspace and having people like you, who I really did like. I felt such a responsibility to people around me, especially people like you, in the role that you played in my development of my psyche in high school. Like, we were like pretty much two peas in a pod. Like, we think the same. Like, you were a lot more outspoken than I was, but like we basically like had the same brave lengths. So I kind of felt the responsibility to you being so positive to me to be strong. So when you said everything's going to be okay, I was just really trying really hard to receive it and say, yeah, you're right. Yeah, thanks. And a lot of people around me kind of took that as, oh, gee, you're taking this great. Like, your mom is dead and you're taking this like a champ. And it's like, yeah, I am. Thank you. Right? I'm crying on you.
You're like,
right.
I'm a rock.
I'm so strong.
Like, you're like, just exploding on the inside.
It's exploding,
and I'm like, I knew how you felt in that moment when I was going through, when I lost my dad. I lost my dad when I was 26. And he passed away from cancer. They gave him 2 years. He made it 5. Okay. But going through that, I'm like, I watched him pass away, and I was like, I wasn't fine, but I looked like I was fine.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm fine. Everybody else is breaking down. I'm like,
that's exactly how I handled it with my mom and then my brother, and that's exactly how I handled it. Like, I just sat there. It was like you almost remove yourself from your body when you see everybody else breaking down.
Wait, no, your brother passed?
Craig is still around, still his same jubilant, annoying self. So, but no, my other brother, he passed like it was less than a year after my mom passed. Like I graduated high school, and then probably like a few months later, like he was gone. So yeah, like and like I even like got super active with like planning funerals of like, and it was like one after another, then my dad, then my uncle, and then it was just like, so I would make the obituaries and help like, and that was a part of me just like staying busy and not internalizing my grief. And like you said, starting this podcast, like even in this conversation in itself, is just it really shakes a lot of things loose. Like just like you said, I've already experienced that.
Get it all out, and then just and find humor in it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of stuff we've been like, me and my co-host, we talk shit, and like shit get dark, but it's funny.
I'm like, holy.
Like that's one of our passages in our book. It gets darker from here. I mean, shit, you gotta laugh because
you
like,
have to.
Shit.
I love dark humor, so I'm definitely gonna be. Oh, what's the name of the book again?
Okay, so it's called because we've been back and forth all over with these names. So now we narrowed it down. Is Combat Divas Chronicles, Survival Guide. Wait. Yes. No. Oop. Nope. I messed it up. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
So it's Combat Divas Chronicles, Survival Guide, a Boots to Heels Journey from Trauma to Triumph.
Boots to Heels Journey from trauma to triumph.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that title says it all. Excuse me. When do you take your exit?
When I get my 20-year letter, shoot.
Oh, 20 years? You're locked in for 20?
Okay. I'm gonna do my contract ends in 2 years. So 20. I'll be retiring at 37.
Okay. Wait, so that's actually a good deal. Like granted, like you got a lot of crap that's been, thrown in on you after leaving, but man, 37 years old retired, that sounds pretty awesome.
But I mean shit, they ain't gonna try to pay me until I'm like damn near 60.
Oh, that's
I ain't gonna get that retirement money yet.
So what's next for you then?
We gonna keep working on this podcast, and we breaking in at a good time.
But so that's what you guys got coming up next. You got your book. The podcast is about to blow up because you guys really found your groove. You found your stride. It's a great time. It gives you a lot of perspective on things from the combat side. You guys don't just talk about combat. You talk about everything under the moon. Like the August Alsina episode was pretty lit. So
we had one of the things we was like, we do not like our kids. They was like, it was like, sometimes I don't like my kid. Yeah, that shit is real. Hey, shoot, I ain't no bad mama. I don't always like my kid. My kid don't always like me.
Children are not very likable by nature, so
yeah. Like sometimes I'm like, so how is it that they can dislike us, but we can't dislike them? Well, we gotta love them because they came out of us. Sometimes I just don't like you. Sometimes I love you, I just don't like you right now. You're my favorite person right now.
Oh,
and I can say that.
That dark humor, like I'm sure there's gonna be a lot more of that in the book. All right, let me see if I can get this. Combat Diva Chronicles, Survival Guide, a Boots to Heels journey from trauma to triumph. Tonnisha, thank you so much for joining me. This has been beyond a pleasure. We definitely have to just link up sometime. Is there anything else you want us to know about Combat Divas? You got the book. Did you have a message that you want to just get out there, say, hey, this is my trauma, this is what I've been through, but these are my hopes for the future? Any type of positivity you might want to end it on, or?
No. What I can say is, even when you feel like, giving up, just don't. Keep going. It's not as bad as you may think it is. I'll say bad times don't last always. You just have to sometimes change your mind, change your perspective, and push through. Think positive, because people underestimate the power of positive thinking. So I would say just stay positive and just keep pushing. That's all. I mean, I feel like I probably all the other big positive things will come later on once I'm off. But yeah, that's what I got. Just stay positive and just think positive.
Again, all right. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to your wonderful partner. You guys are doing an awesome job over there. Keep it up.
Thank you.